It's 4 o'clock on a Thursday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. And welcome to the big show. Wow, did my color saturation just increase for no reason? Weird. Anyway, hello everybody. How are you guys? Good to see you. Let me adjust that color a bit. Whoa, what the heck is going on? Let's drop that saturation down just a pinch. There we go. Not that much better. Hello, everybody. We've got Ken Messford, Bob Gunnerfeld, Nancy Kalel, Dan Weber, Peter Rahill, Akira Canyon, Andre Stepanian. Oh, I missed you too, Andre. Eric Anderson, Jesse J. Peck, Michael Kirby Music. Most of the gang is here. I know, kind of a surprise being back in the saddle again. Great to see you guys. Andre, I've got to tell you, fishing not happening in Israel. I did so much research. We were right across the street from the Mediterranean and spent a lot of time walking up and down that beach. One day I saw a guy out there fishing. He must have had like a 12-foot, maybe longer, essentially a cane pole, but it was made out of fiberglass with just, line tied to the end, no reel on it. And I said, "What do you catch?" And he goes, I get a little bit of, this and that. I said, "Well, how big are they? Like this big?" And he goes, like that big. So pan fryers. Oh man, now my color saturation has changed again. What is going on? Anyway, good to see you guys. Good to see me. All faded. Okay, one more adjustment and then I'm done adjusting for the rest of the show. And now I'm a little overly saturated. What the heck? Oh well, I look tan. Hello, Songs from a Headband. How are you? Michael Lehman, how are you? So here we are, back in the saddle again. I really have no show planned today. Just mostly just wanted to hang out with you guys because we haven't done a Quarantini in, like 6 weeks now? I've been back for a week. Finally starting to feel rested up and kind of normal. Thanks, Ken. Excuse me, a little phlegmy down there. Did I wait for an hour and 6 minutes after midnight when I arrived back at LAX for the shuttle to pick me up? Why, yes, I did. That was a pain in the butt. Other than that, pretty good travel day. Didn't sleep. The flight coming back was about 17 hours from arrival at the airport in Tel Aviv until I got back to LAX. I had about a 2-hour layover at Newark. Didn't sleep a wink. Not a wink. And I was kind of okay the day after, but 2 days after, I was just laid out from jet lag, and I've been pretty jet lagged up until today. I actually woke up feeling pretty normal, and now I'm with you guys, so I feel even more normal. So what shall we do today? Ooh, my system CPU is at 12%. That's odd. That never happens. Usually during Taxi TV, it's like 3%. Sounds like LA is back to normal then? Yeah, it is back to normal. Nothing much has changed here, gotta say. Wow, it's toggling. That is so weird. Oh well, don't know why. Let me kill some other programs. Oh, can't kill that. I have no idea why it's doing that. That is so weird. My little fan is running. Haven't had that happen in a very long time. I'm going to kill some other pages here. Nothing that should be causing that. Oh well. Oh well. Too much tech to figure out. I'll just have to roll with it and hope that we don't have a problem. Anyway, so want to do some Q&A. Hello, Giovanni. Hello, Dave Barnett. Tony Salazzo, Too Kosher, the Taxi Road Rally. I'm glad you asked. I just got off about a 40-minute phone call with our main contact at the Westin, and they are up in the air. I have read so much stuff about all the state laws and municipality laws for LA City, LA County, and the state of California. So on June 15th, they are lifting the mask thing, and they say things are going back to normal. The lady from the hotel told me that they have approval, they think, but they're not saying anything until June 15th. Wow, look at that. There's my color saturation has gone way back up. However, she said they are still... are you getting any audio yet? I think people are getting audio. They are trepidatious. They're waiting to see on the 15th how things are going to shake out. So I'm going to go over to the Westin sometime shortly after, like the 16th or 17th, and meet with them and meet with the new general manager, who I have not met with yet. He came on board, I think, not too long before COVID settled in, so I haven't met him yet. And find out what the deal is. We just don't know. There are all kinds of considerations. So even if it's, 100%, what is going on with this thing today? It's so weird. Like every time I move, the color changes. All right, one more attempt at fixing that. Nothing is easy anymore. Okay, so I said to her, what about, will we be able, a big concern of mine, first of all, obviously, is everybody's health. And I said, what about the ballroom? Are there going to be restrictions on how many people can be in there? And she goes, we don't know yet. And I said, what about the mentor lunches? And she just kind of laughed at that. And then I said, the big question in my mind is, although we take over pretty much the entire hotel, there are people that come in from other places that aren't part of the road rally. So we could have people coming in from countries where COVID may still be a big deal, and they walk into the bar and potentially, infect a bunch of people. I'm just curious, how many of you, if you're comfortable telling me this, how many of you are fully vaccinated? Give me a +1 if you are fully vaccinated, if you're comfortable talking about that, because I know it's a health issue. All right, well, so far like a dozen of you. There's Jesse chiming in. Because that's another issue that we talked about, was like when I was in Israel, they had a thing that they wouldn't trust your vaccination card showing that you had the vaccination, because people will bootleg them. They could scan them and change the name on it, all that kind of stuff. So once you get there, you have to quarantine, and then you are allowed to go out of quarantine to go to a hospital or an urgent care somewhere and get a blood test looking for antibodies. So they don't trust a quarantine card, but they do trust the antibody test, because they have an official way of reporting back to the government, and then the government issues you a little thing that shows up on your cell phone that says that that your antibody level is high enough that you can then go into a restaurant and sit down and have dinner without a mask. But I don't want to play quarantine police. What are we supposed to do? Have the staff, as they check people into the rally, looking for that, and how do we get people to do that? Is it going to be required? I don't know. So there's just still so much up in the air. I really don't know. All I can tell you is we are as on top of it as we possibly can be, and we'll keep you updated as we find out. How do you guys feel about it? Those of you, I actually spoke to one member who's been a member for a very long time, and he's a friend of mine, and he's very proud of the fact that he's been to 13 road rallies. And I asked him, so, we'd like to do a road rally in person this year. Are you vaccinated? And he said, yeah. I said, would you come? And he goes, yeah, probably not this year. So I found that a little curious, that somebody who's vaccinated might still not come. Well, of course, there's always some chance, even with the vaccine, that you could still get it. What do you guys think? What if we have a Quarantini to get into the road rally? There you go. I like the way you think. It's hard to put on a convention with so many question marks. I know. And I'm getting outreach from our sponsors, and they're like, are you doing it? Are you not doing it? Are you doing it live? Are you doing it virtual again? They need to know. Have vaccination only in the ballroom. Could you imagine us trying to police that? I mean, we'd have to have people at all 4 doors to the ballroom checking some sort of proof. And what do? Look at the vaccination cards, which, people have bootlegged their road rally badges. I'm sure they would bootleg the vaccination cards. Oh, that's true. Canadians can't even come to the U.S. right now, right? And hopefully, Julie says, hopefully things will be different by then. I'm thinking that they probably will be. The question for me is, we're in that window now where we have to start booking panelists. And by the way, I've spoken to a couple of panelists that are like, yeah, I don't know. It's like I would be up on the stage, but I'm not shaking any hands. I'm not going to the bar. I don't want to come down to the front of the stage and accept CDs from people. It's like, but you're vaccinated. I know. I think we're all so kind of conditioned and scared. I was in that meeting. Angel from our staff was in here with me when we were on the phone with the lady from the Westin. I was telling you, I still see people. Whoops. Yep, must be a squirrel in the backyard. Yep, squirrel in the backyard. All right, going to turn that off. Anyway, I actually know somebody that's been vaccinated, had both shots like over a month ago, and is still wearing a double mask in his car while driving on the freeway with the windows rolled up. So what happened if we become a world full of mask wearers forever? I don't know. Ray Hill wants to know if he can get by with a shot of whiskey. No, you have to have 2. You have to, well, unless of course it's the J&J whiskey. Oh man. Yeah, so I really thought for sure I would have an answer by now, but I don't. There's still as many questions as there are answers. The one thing I know is that a lot of people want us to do it live and in person. As a company, I want to do it live and in person. I've got a couple of staff members who have not gotten vaccinated. I worry about them. If we've got a couple thousand people, and would we get a couple thousand people, or would we get, only 500 people would show up? Would I have to write refund checks to the sponsors if we only had 25% of the expected turnout or the typical turnout? Whiskey's not a valid vaccine. I think it might be. I don't know, Martin. You could be wrong about that. It is a sad state of affairs. How many of you are in countries outside of the United States? Give me a +1 if you're outside. How about a bake sale? I love it. Yeah, I can tell you the dates. The date for the road rally, whether it's remote or in person, is November 4th through the 7th. So that much I know. We're becoming virophobes. Wow, so a decent number of you, almost half of you who have gotten the vaccine are outside the U.S. Are there any countries other than Canada where the borders are closed to the U.S.? And why are we picking on Canada? How would one conflict with the other if I submit a purely instrumental Ataxi and submit lyrics with someone else with different tracks? I don't really understand that question, Pablo. Can you rephrase that? Are you asking, can I submit something, an instrumental version for one listing, and have it signed to somebody? If the instrumental is signed, can you submit a version with lyrics to somebody else? If that's the question, you can't. Canada deserves it. Now, Paulie, be nice. I like Canadians. They're the most polite people I've ever met. We're not allowed to go up there. So much for my fishing trip with Andre, right? Telling you, Andre, when this is all over, I am coming up and we are going fishing. I was very disappointed to not have fishing be an option for me while I was over in Israel. Missouri's not out of the U.S., though some call it Central America. That's funny. That's right. Rocky and Bullwinkle were from Canada? I thought only Dudley Do-Right was from Canada. Hello, Terrell. How are you? Fishing is essential. I mean, how could the Mediterranean be devoid? Now, we were very fortunate that some family friends rented us a really nice, modern, clean, beautiful 4-bedroom apartment across the street from the Mediterranean. You could literally hit a tennis ball into, well, maybe if you were really whacked, you could hit a golf ball into the Mediterranean from our patio, okay? So you looked out from we were on the 4th floor, and there were some sand dunes with some vegetation growing on them and all these cool paths that you could walk around and check things out in the sand dunes. And then the Mediterranean was right over the dunes. And I was there for 5.5 weeks, and I must have stood on that patio looking out, 100, 200, 300 times. I mean, every day, multiple times. And I was shocked. I never saw, pelicans or seagulls. I never saw birds that would normally fly over like schools of bait fish, indicating that if there are bait fish on the surface, there would be bigger fish under them trying to eat them. None of that stuff was going on. And then when I talked to that fisherman, and actually a couple others, they're all like, yeah, I caught a fish this big. It's like, that's bait. That's not fish. That's bait. It's the Mediterranean. Aren't other countries like Greece that are on the Mediterranean famous for their seafood? Wow, Andre, so you've done that? You've gone fishing for bait? Yeah, that was my big disappointment. Other than that, the trip was great. We got to spend a ton of time with our daughters. And we didn't do any touristy stuff. I've been there 9 times before and have done a lot of touristy stuff. This trip was all about family and friends and just hanging out. I got to say, I was doing taxi work every day. And honestly, I was doing taxi work 6 or 7 days a week, maybe not the long hours that I work in LA. But yeah, please hit the like button. Please. I'm back. We're back. Give us a like. It doesn't cost you anything. And I felt really relaxed for the first time in a very long time. My shoulders weren't tight. Pat Wara, how are you, buddy? I was in Israel. The Roman toilets were previous year. Didn't see. I didn't even go visit any ruins this time. One day we actually went and looked. A really good friend of ours is a real estate developer, and he's doing a project that was probably about 40 minutes north of where we were staying. And he said, "You guys should go up there and look at what we're doing." Apparently, there's only one piece of land left in Israel where they're allowing them to build single-family homes on the water, like maybe, I don't know, 50 or 100 yards from the water. So Deb and I drove up there and checked it out. I've got to say, the Mediterranean, I mean, it was gorgeous where we were staying. It was even more gorgeous up there. It was, again, I saw a bunch of guys fishing. We walked out onto this very old, very dangerous, rickety pier that had probably been there since the time of Jesus or something. I mean, this thing was really old. And those guys, too, were just we're catching fish about this big. It's like, why even bother? I mean, you could do that with a net in your bathtub. But, we spent like an hour kind of walking around that pier in that general area, and that was about as touristy as we got. Did eat some great food. Nancy Kalel, I knew you would ask that question about did I miss the Trader Joe's chocolate-covered coffee beans. I didn't miss getting wired on them. I missed the chocolatey deliciousness. I recently, right before I left, I bought some chocolate-covered ginger from Trader Joe's, like little balls of ginger covered in dark chocolate. And those are pretty good, but not as good as the coffee-flavored beans. Israel is beautiful. It's hard to describe because it's a tiny little country that's like, I don't know, you can drive top to bottom in 6 or 7 hours. There are places where you can drive across the entire country in like an hour. And it's kind of like the south of Israel is the very, very south is kind of like Miami Beach, but hotter. The southern third of the country is desert. That's kind of like Palm Springs, I guess, if you've ever been out there. The center of the country is virtually identical weather-wise to like Los Angeles. And then the north is kind of like the weather in Northern California. So you do get to experience a bunch of different climate changes, even though it's a tiny little country. Excuse me. Yeah, it's very high tech, Pat. It's funny, since I've been back, several people I know go, "Oh yeah, I've been to Israel. I went to Herzliya, which is kind of the Silicon Valley." Apparently, it's like the second tech development center, only second to Silicon Valley. So a lot of people who are involved in tech end up going over there to spend time working with companies in Herzliya. And you see, like Google is over there, Apple is over there, I think Microsoft is over there. Yeah, I knew that's where you'd be. Yeah, my daughters are absolutely safe over there. I mean, frankly, we were there for all of the rocket stuff going on. And one night we were out to dinner with some friends of ours from California that have lived over there for 20 years. They came to where we were staying. We were sitting outside a place. I hate to describe it as a strip mall because it really isn't, but it's like a semicircular mall of upscale cafes and bakeries and wine and cheese places, that kind of stuff, with, I don't know, a couple hundred umbrella tables sitting outside, and it's kind of like the hangout place every night. Every day at lunch it's busy, and then every evening families gather there. You see kids on skateboards, and scooters were everywhere. And it's a really nice place to hang out. The people are super friendly. The food was great. And all of a sudden, I mean, we knew that rockets were hitting in other parts of the country, but, always like by car 45 minutes to 2 hours away from us, and all of a sudden the air raid siren went off where we were, and it was quite amazing to see 500 people just stand up, leave their food. Some people took their drinks with them. Those were the smart ones. And everybody just walked into the assorted businesses that we were all sitting in front of. Deb and I and our friends went into a bakery that had big plate glass windows, and a young girl worked at the bakery said, "You wouldn't want to stand in front of that window." She was right, so she took us into the kitchen area where there was no glass, and then all of a sudden we heard boom, 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 boom. That was the Iron Dome rockets taking out the inbound rockets. And I got to tell you, maybe I'm abnormal, maybe my wife is abnormal, our friends we were with were abnormal. We weren't freaked out. I barely felt my heart race. I mean, the siren was scarier than knowing that the rockets were coming. Maybe I have more confidence than I should in the Iron Dome, but it wasn't all that scary. And one of my daughters was about 15 minutes away from us. A rocket did hit in the town she's in. Another rocket hit about a block away from somebody we know over there, but thank God, it's like wasn't nearly as bad as you would think, even though there were 4,300 rockets in like a 10 or 11 day period. It's a lot of rockets. It was a little surreal, but just not that bad. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Anyway, we had a great time, and it was the most incredible thing about the trip was just being able to spend that much time with our daughters, because they've both lived over there now. One of them has lived over there for 7 years, and the other one has lived there for 2.5 or 3 years. Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, we were fine. Here's a little known fact. Didn't mean to do a travelogue for the show today, but do you know that after a certain date, and I don't know if that date was in the 70s or 80s, but every home, even like a one-bedroom apartment, every home has a bomb shelter built into it. One of the bedrooms looks essentially like a normal bedroom, other than it's got a special ventilation system in case there's ever a chemical attack. And it's got like a 3/4 inch piece of steel that slides shut over the window. And then it's got a special steel door that when you lock it, like tons of things come out of the door and go into the wall so that it can't be blown in on you. So there were either 2 or 3 nights that Deb and I slept in there. Just to be safe, we actually slept with the door open, and should we have heard the sirens, we would have slammed the door shut. I was just afraid if we shut the door that we might never get out again. Hang in there, Mikey. Lots of great stuff coming for the future of the entertainment industry. Okay, look forward to that wild enjoyment. Wow, Pat, you're going 7.5 miles and 3,000 vertical feet each way. Good luck with that, but you're in good shape. You can handle it. You're not that old. Not that old. Oh, man. Coronado's going to have 12 concerts in the park. Best sound ever. Wow. You're talking Coronado down by San Diego? Is there one place to register lyrics that take care of all possible kinds of income revenue in all genres and all countries? I honestly don't know the answer to that. And I'm pretty knowledgeable, but not entirely knowledgeable. I'm not aware of anything. That's probably the short way to say it, or the best way to say it. The customs thing going into Israel was almost non-existent. Here's the deal. I'll give you the update. And I would imagine that this is true for pretty much international travel almost anywhere now, although I can't say that with certainty. We had to get tested, a COVID test, 72 hours out from our departure flight. in the U.S. And then we had to show up with the results of that test. We had to have our vaccination cards and our COVID test showing that we were tested for COVID no further out than 72 hours before the flight. Upon landing in Israel, it was normal getting off the plane, going through, where the little kiosk takes your picture and it generates a little thing that goes inside of your passport. Then you walk up to somebody, what are you here for, work or pleasure? I guess I lied a little bit because I said pleasure, but I actually, not only taxi work, I had meetings with companies about taxi, and I'll get to that later. And then you actually go for an at the airport COVID test when you land. And they were so unbelievably nice and so efficient in doing that. After you get your luggage, and nobody bothered to look inside of my luggage, I guess I have an innocent face. I don't know. Anyway, you go over, it was a very short, very fast moving line. They did another COVID test. I got to say, the guy was a lot nicer than the lady that did our COVID test here in LA, because that lady actually stuck it like all the way to the back of my head. This guy just, under the tongue, in the cheeks, and then in the nose, both sides, but not that deep. It didn't hurt at all. And then like 5 minutes later, the results showed up on my phone. So it really doesn't get any better than that. Then after that, we were supposed to quarantine. If you didn't get an antibody test, you're supposed to quarantine for 10 days. And they check on you in 10 days. And if you are COVID-free, then they let you out. If you have any sort of illness or anything, I think that they require you to stay in for another 4 days. Anyway, on day number 3, we needed the first 2 days just to acclimate and get some sleep. But then we went and got the antibody test, and 24 hours later got the result from that. Once we had that, we were free to roam around, go wherever, and do anything we wanted. So it was pretty easy, gotta say. How many COVID tests does it take to screw in a light bulb? Hey, Ken Mesford, I remember you won the contest. Have you been in touch, or has anybody from the staff been in touch with you to get your mailing address and stuff so that we can, and your size, so we can send you? You want a hoodie, if I remember right. So please let us know. Yeah, Martina, you hear from Taxi within a 30-day window, whether you were forwarded or not. And as far as how long it takes to hear from a library, we have tons of anecdotal situations where people have heard the same day or a day or two later. For the most part, you would hear a week or two later. It's not uncommon that it takes even longer, which I know is torture for you guys. Sometimes the libraries ask for stuff, and then they get on a big project and they keep looking at that folder on their desktop going, I know I got to listen to that stuff, but it's not a pressing emergency, so they take their sweet time. So we actually had one case that I've mentioned many times on Taxi TV where it took 7 years. Somebody got a call from a library 7 years after their submission, because a lot of the companies will keep stuff that they hear and don't sign in that moment. They may decide, you know what, I don't need any solo piano stuff right now, even though they ran a listing for it because they had a particular need. And then they filled the need, and, oh man, I got a folder full of stuff from Taxi, and they'll listen to it and go, wow, that one's good, that one's good, that one's good. They put it in the on hold folder, or I should do something about this someday folder. And then the next time they need a solo piano thing, they go look at what's in the folder. So there's just no way to predict it. But the answer is, keep pitching until you hear, and you probably won't hear. Statistically, don't get your hopes up. I mean, just because you've been forwarded doesn't mean you're going to hear. There's no guarantee. So if you kind of, treat it with, yeah, I'll probably never hear, then you'll be pleasantly surprised when you do. Oh, I see Dan Weber, other people are saying, yep, keep pitching even though you've been forwarded. I already gave the updates on the road rally, Pat, and the answer is California is coming out with a new set of rules, which is basically masks can go away and everything is opening up on June 15th. I spoke to the lady from the hotel at length right before Taxi TV today, and she said they don't know exactly how things are going to shake out. Are there going to be limits as to how many people can be in a ballroom? Is there going to be social distancing? Blah, blah, blah. So shortly after the 15th, we're going to go down and meet with the general manager and the head of sales and figure out once and for all if we can do it or we can't do it. Hello, Edmund. Good to see you. Wow. Paulie says he and Terrell just had something signed that was submitted 4 years ago. There you go. That's not the norm, but it does happen. Have I met Eric Burden, as in Eric Burden from the Animals? Nope, can't say that I have. I've been fortunate to meet a fair number of rock stars in my lifetime, but not Eric Burden. I know, it would be so awesome, and I will make good on my promise that if we're able to do an in-person road rally this year, that I want to do a special private event just for all you Quarantini people, because we've become such a little family over the last year or so. I think it would be great for all of us to be able to put a face with the names. I mean, it's amazing how close many of you have become over this past year, and most of you have never met each other face to face. The vast majority of you, I believe, have never met each other face to face. I'm scrolling up to see if there's anything that I missed. Question, what do you eat when you're in quarantine? Do you have to order in everything? I've got to say, for me personally, I didn't order a single meal to be delivered during quarantine. Remember, for 6 or 7 or 8 weeks, my wife got stuck in Israel last year and was quarantined over there. So I was flying solo in Southern California. And now I'd go to the grocery store about once a week and made all my meals at home. I love to cook. I hate to clean. But yeah, I was a pretty good bachelor, gotta say. I know how to clean the kitchen now, know how to put stuff in the dishwasher. I hate taking stuff out of the dishwasher and putting it away in the cabinets. I don't know why that's such a pain in the butt, but it is. But yeah, I made all of my meals, and I cooked a lot of stuff on the barbecue so that I didn't have to clean grease spatter off of the stove and that sort of stuff, wash pots and pans. But didn't order anything in because, frankly, we really didn't know what was going on. You know, it's like if you order something in, they say that nobody touched this box of pizza or this bag of burgers or whatever, but who the hell knew? I mean, the first few months of COVID, I remember going to the grocery store. I would walk in the back door. Actually, before I walked in the back door from the garage into the family room, I was spraying the bottoms of my shoes with Lysol and then taking off my clothes and putting them in the washing machine, and then would take all the groceries out. And still, does anybody still wipe down their groceries? We are still soaking our fruit and vegetables in a sink of soapy water, leaving them in there for like a half hour and then washing them, rinsing them off. Excuse me, I was thinking about that because I'm doing it right now. My wife is still in Israel. She's taking care of some stuff with the kids. One of the kids is moving, so she's hanging out to help her. He won a free membership. Thank you for that. Andre, for letting me know, and congratulations, Ken. So anyway, I'm a bachelor again, and I am still soaking fruits and vegetables. I guess we could call it produce. But, well, of course, we all wash our fruit and vegetables when we get at the grocery store, but not to the extent that we were during COVID, I don't think, but maybe. Party at Michael's house. There you go. Yeah, I bought a bag of blue corn chips the other day, and I was wiping it down, and I thought, do I still have to do this? Because we don't really know. I mean, there really hasn't been any definitive information as they say, well, we're not so concerned about touch anymore. Okay, but let's say that the guy at the grocery store rubbed his eye or picked his nose or biting his fingernails, then he takes that bag out of a box, puts it up on the shelf. Half an hour later, you come by and take that bag, bring it home, and then you tear it open because you're hungry while you're unloading the groceries, and you take out that blue corn chip, and you could have cooties on your hand, and now it's in your mouth. And I know stomach acid kills it, but it's just who knows? Andre, if you have a party, I'll jump the border. I'll send my private jet to get you, Andre. Private jet that I don't actually have. Right. I just have all my groceries in my car for 3 or 4 days. I mean, I hope your car's parked in the garage and not outside, because things would get kind of, so we're overly ripe, let's say, in a hurry. Yeah. 50 ways to Lysol your lover. There you go. Yeah, I was doing that, putting stuff out in the sun. And remember, I've got an ultraviolet wand that everybody laughed at me. My staff gave it to me like 10, 12, 15 years ago, because I'm like mildly to moderately germophobic. I'm not so bad about it, but I am careful. And they bought me an ultraviolet wand, and I was using that thing on the groceries, and I would still wash them down and wipe them down anyway. Andre asks, have you seen Rob Shirelli? We haven't seen each other, but we did just talk. Today is Thursday. I think it was yesterday. It was Wednesday night. Rob and I spoke on the phone for about an hour. He's doing great, working a lot. I actually asked him if he would do a taxi TV with me in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and he said, absolutely, just let me know. Yeah, I took my drone with me to Israel, and there we were, like across the street from the sand dunes in the Mediterranean. I didn't take it out and fly it once. Not at all. Why? I don't know. We were busy doing a lot of nothing. I would work like 2 or 3 hours in the morning on taxi stuff. When I would get up at like 6 or 7 in the morning over there, it was like 4 in the afternoon at the taxi office. So 6 a.m. in Israel's 4 a.m. or 4 p.m. in Los Angeles. So I would work for a few hours in the morning, and then we would do whatever. We'd go out to lunch or go walk on the sand dunes or go down to the beach, and go to the grocery store, just living life. And then in the evening after dinner, usually from like, I don't know, maybe 9 p.m. to midnight, I would work again. Speaking of drones, I'll tell you when I didn't fly my drone. On Sunday, my daughter, her husband, and our 5-year-old granddaughter and our 6-month-old grandson came over to the house, and I did buffalo chicken wings on the grill. And we're having a great time. We're out in the backyard, and all of a sudden, there's a plane that flies over my house 7 days a week, and it's clearly people taking flying lessons. I could just tell by the things that it's doing. It's flying at a fairly low altitude, and they practice doing bank turns, and they do stalls and restarts of the engine, that sort of stuff. And so we're out there, and I said, "Oh, there's the pilot, the instructor, and a student." And then literally, I said that, and 15 seconds later, the engine cut out. I said, "Wow, they're doing stalls and restarts," and we never heard the restart. And I went, "That's odd." And then about 3 minutes later, we heard all kinds of sirens. I thought, "Oh no, it crashed." Well, it didn't crash. The pilot, the instructor, was good enough that he was able to loop it back around, and he landed it on the 101 freeway. Or it was on Monday, so there was like a ton of traffic, people coming back to LA from being gone for the weekend, and the pilot was able to put it down on the freeway literally at our exit, so about 0.8 of a mile from our house, put it down on the freeway, didn't land on top of anybody, and nobody rear-ended him. The plane was fine. Obviously, the pilot and the student were fine. And there were 3 or 4 helicopters up there for like 2 hours, shooting TV footage. And I wanted to fly my drone over there. We didn't know what happened for a while. Finally found something on Twitter about it, but I was curious, wanted to fly my drone over, but I thought probably not a good idea with 4 helicopters in the air. My father-in-law is a private pilot, owns a Cessna, and he's, I think, 79 years old. He's been flying since high school or something. He's, got a lot of hours in the air. Anyway, my in-laws were over for dinner one night about 9 months ago, and my father-in-law said something about getting his plane back from the shop. And I said, "Oh, what did you get fixed, or what'd you do?" And he goes, "Oh, I got the engine replaced." I said, "Wow, was the other engine, did it have that many hours on it?" He goes, "Nah, it crapped out on me on a flight." I said, "What?" He goes, "Oh yeah, the engine quit." I said, "Hold on a minute. Your engine died on your Cessna while you were airborne?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "What did you do?" He said, I just glided it back to the airport and landed." So there you go. Apparently, if you have enough hours, you are able to do that. Yeah, did you know that freeways are mandated all over the United States, that you have to have X amount of straight freeway every few miles? Even, if it's like a curvy freeway for whatever reason, you're mandated to have straight sections of freeway. Every freeway in the country, I believe, and that's exactly for that reason, so they can put planes down if they need to. Quarantine is the same feeling as stuffing yourself inside a box. And that's exactly why we do the Quarantini happy hours. It was a way for all of us to stay connected, even though we were essentially trapped at home. Take care, Giovanni. Sweet dreams. Get a good night of sleep. Don't forget, first of all, if you're not a subscriber, please hit the red button and subscribe. And would you please give us one of those? And know that on this coming Monday's regular Taxi TV that we're going to do the top 10, because we haven't been able to do that for a while. It was very difficult for me to do Taxi TVs from over there. I had to set up my rig on the island in the kitchen, and I would have had to tear it down. I had to tear it down after every show and then set it back up. I couldn't bring my trusty Rodecaster with me. I did bring all kinds of gear. I basically had a small rolling suitcase that went on the plane with me that had lighting, audio cables, USB adapters, all kinds of stuff. Have I thought of the next member interview for June? I have, and it was supposed to be Casey Hurwitz, who's been a longtime Taxi member, and I've always wanted to interview him because he is essentially a non-performing, non-playing, non-singing songwriter. He does play guitar, but kind of like me, he can do bar chords and basic chords, but he's just not great at it, which I understand that. And he probably sings a lot like me, which is not great. So he either collaborates with other members or goes to outside producers to get his stuff done, and he's had some really good placements. But I wanted to interview him because he's got not only a perspective on that, but he's just been a member for so long. So, yep, Hurwitz, like that. You spelled it right, Peter. Am I drinking anything today? Why, of course I am, Nancy. You'll be happy to know, for those of you who think that I drink too much of this stuff, that the entire 5.5 weeks I was in Israel, I think I had maybe 3 energy drinks the whole time. I was drinking coffee before I would start. Taxi TV was starting at like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. for me over there. And I would, still getting up at like 5:30, 6 a.m. Just because that's when I woke up. Not like I was setting an alarm clock. But I had to drink coffee 15 minutes before the show just to like be awake enough to do it. I forget the brand name. They did have Red Bull over there, but it's pretty expensive. So I was drinking something or other XL in a pretty blue can. It was good. Tasted good. Have I interviewed Pedro, as in Pedro Costa? I have interviewed him, I think years ago. And I've interviewed him on Taxi TV, but I did him as an anonymous guy. He and I talked beforehand. He did it anonymously because he didn't want to get deluged with a bunch of people. Because, it's not only taxi members that watch his stuff. And sometimes I've had issues with people getting hit up with a lot of emails and just from people outside of taxi, hey man, you got to hear my music, it's awesome. So we did him as an anonymous music library owner during quarantine. You are what you drink. I'm a rock star. Only in my own mind. My family reminds me all the time that I'm not. They're more, I don't know why, but it's like, it's not like I walk around going, I'm famous because of Taxi TV, but they do joke about that. There's a unit you can buy for $1,500 that makes your residence COVID virus and mole free forever. Do you mean mold? Or do you mean gophers or moles? Oh, thank you, Charles. Charles says he renewed his taxi membership last month. Truly appreciates these YouTube videos. Tons of useful information. Thank you for your commitment and positive energy. Well, I appreciate the kind words. You can probably thank Rockstar for any energy that I have during the shows. I love doing it. I'm especially fond now of doing the Quarantinis. And I've been thinking about that. Let's spend the last few minutes talking about the Quarantinis. I don't think we can call them Quarantinis for much longer because essentially quarantine pretty much everywhere except for India and a couple of other outlying countries is over. So I want to continue to do these. I may make them members only. And I'm going to come up with some new names. Or actually, if you guys would be kind enough, after this video is posted on YouTube, if you could go into the comment area and post names, for what we might call the future. I don't know what the heck to call them. We'll still have regular Taxi TV on Monday. Maybe we'll do 1 or 2 of these a week. Frankly, I often worry that I've come up with like every bit of information I could possibly pass on to you, every topic we could possibly cover, at least stuff that's relevant for our members. I mean, I guess I could talk about things like, touring and stuff, but that's not really what this community is all about. Taxi happy hour, it doesn't really... I thought about that. Honestly, Pat, I thought about that. That was my first thought, actually. But it doesn't say what it's about. I mean, the Quarantini thing we did because it was apropos for the quarantine. Anyway, so, yeah, work on that. Come up with a bunch of suggestions. Taxi blackout drunk hour. There might be a few people that could qualify for that. I don't think so, though. Pretty well behaved. Taxi breakouts, Quarantini Anonymous. There you go. Oh, man. Minor gopher traffic in the backyard. Thank you for asking. I was laughing because, on my phone I can see what the Ring security camera out in the backyard sees, and I have it set with a pretty low threshold, so even stuff like a squirrel will set it off. And not a day went by. We have a loquat tree on the side of our house. We never get to eat any of the loquats because raccoons, squirrels, and rabbits eat the loquats. The squirrels climb the trees, knock everything off. I guess the raccoon does as well. They knock everything off the tree, and then the rabbit eats whatever hits the ground. So the whole time we were over there, probably like a dozen times a day, I would see the rabbit going eastbound, and then 20 minutes later, or the squirrel going eastbound, knowing that he was going to go over there, go around the corner, up the tree, eat a bunch of loquats, and then 20 minutes later, I'd see him going the opposite direction. And then you would see the rabbit going in the same direction. Half an hour later, the rabbit would wander out into the yard. So they were all very well fed while we were gone. I came home to one new sizable gopher mound, and that was about it. Julie Valenta, hello. I don't think I've ever seen you in the room before, so sorry if I've missed you, but welcome to the big show. AA for taxi members. It is, but nobody has to confess to having a problem. Yeah, there was a lot of wildlife activity. No coyotes while we were gone, but a surprising number of raccoons. Usually they're like from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m., so I'd wake up to raccoon videos. We also have a camera inside the house, and funny enough, I found that we had our next door neighbor watching the house, and if she would water the plant on by our front door, just her being outside would set off the camera inside, which is up on the second floor and doesn't even really look down at that door. So apparently the radar or whatever, the motion detectors are really, really good on Ring products. The taxi therapy session, there you go. Maybe we don't have to call it taxi at all, or maybe we should have something about music in the new name. I basically want to turn it into, we'll keep it pretty much the same. We're not going to have the topic of, COVID and the quarantine. It was a big part of what we talked about, certainly in the early days of the Quarantini happy hours. And as you guys who are regulars well know, these shows are not often all that well structured. Sometimes I would have a topic, sometimes I wouldn't. I hope that going forward we keep up the same family vibe. Robbie Hancock bought a boat. A 28-foot Cali to be exact. Just got your angler license. Looking forward to doing some fishing. Yeah. Taxi Forums Live. Music therapy. The high bar. I like that. A taxi cabbie hour. But see, people that drive cabs, I get hit up by companies that make like roof lights for taxis all the time on LinkedIn or taxi booking software. It should be something about hanging out with musicians. Taxi unclosed. No, at least I always have my clothes on. I've got to say I'm very proud of the fact we've done well over 100 of these, probably more like 150 or 200 of them at this point, because for those of you who don't know, I used to do them Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so 4 a week, and the regular Taxi TV on Mondays. And I've never done an episode of any of those things wearing my shorts. I don't even, the shorts that I would sleep in, that are kind of made out of like t-shirt material. Hanging out with taxi passengers, Taxi Unhinged, Taxi Backstage. I'm thinking like the music Q&A hour, the music industry, something, taxis, music industry, hangout. I don't know. Anyway, keep thinking and please post some ideas so I can plagiarize them for free. No royalties paid. Post them in the comment section. I'd really appreciate that. I know I could be pantless. Apparently, a lot of the newscasters during COVID that were streaming from home would wear a pair of cutoffs or a pair of shorts and then wear their suit and tie for the upper half. And then there was that one guy, I can't even remember his name now. Jeffrey Toobin, that was doing a Zoom meeting with the other people. I think it was CNN. And let's just say they saw more of him than they wanted to or that he should have allowed them to. Wow. What a bonehead. Michael Laskow Unplugged. No, that will get no audience whatsoever. The Green Room. Sounds like a bunch of people smoking weed. Taxi Musician Hangout. Or John Hope says, hi, John. Taxi Hangout. In any case, all right, well, our time for today is up. It was great seeing you guys. Really, I thought about you guys every single day over there. I felt bad that the tech was just so unwieldy. I got to tell you, every time I did a taxi TV, a regular taxi TV from over there, I was scared to death. For whatever reason, stuff just, wasn't working very well. I had one night where I couldn't get the camera. I would plug in the camera to the USB and it just wouldn't show up. I wouldn't get the light on the camera. It wouldn't send a signal. Finally, I just blew into the end of the USB and blew into the female USB on the side of the computer and it worked. So maybe there was a little dust bunny in there. I don't know. Yeah, I don't miss the squeaky chair. That thing was a pain in the butt. And by the way, you should know that every single thing in that apartment, as nice as it was, and it actually looked nice. It wasn't just a great location, and it was like 1,500 square feet, so fairly spacious apartment. Every single thing in there, down to the coffee cups and steak knives, everything was purchased at IKEA. So I think this family, which is from London, they bought it so that their other family members could use it. They have some family living in Israel that they go visit. And I think they occasionally rent it to family friends and such. So they didn't want to put really nice furniture in there and have it destroyed by a bunch of kids. So every single thing in the place is from IKEA. And while it looked really good, you know how IKEA is kind of known for, shall we say, a lack of durability? So the first day we're there, Deb and I are unpacking in the master bedroom, and inside the closet they had an armoire where you could hang stuff and some drawers in it. And I go in there, or shelves in it, and I go in there and I took half a dozen T-shirts out of my suitcase and put them on the shelf, and the shelf just dropped to the ground. The little plastic things holding it up didn't age well, and they just shattered. I literally put a half a dozen T-shirts and the shelf went whoomp. Then the refrigerator died in place, so we had the freezer side was like a refrigerator. The refrigerator side was room temperature. So we spent about 2 days of our entire trip over there dealing with getting servicemen to come out and check out the refrigerator. I learned way more about I can honestly repair a refrigerator right now. I understand everything you need to know about a refrigerator. I know how to replace the motherboard on an LG freezer fridge combo side by side with a door within the door. I know all about that. And then they said, you know what, we'll just go ahead and buy a new refrigerator. And so Deb and I had to go to refrigerator stores and price them and send them pictures and take measurements and go back to the apartment to remeasure because that one's going to be a half inch too tall. And then they were so afraid of spending. I mean, to replace a refrigerator is like $2,500 now. I thought they were $400, $500, $800. And this wasn't a particularly fancy refrigerator. Yeah, it had ice and water in the door, and it was a side-by-side, and it was stainless, but it wasn't a high-end refrigerator. And to get the equivalent refrigerator is $2,500. So they said, nah, I don't want to do that. So then we had to live with the broken fridge for another week or so, and then finally we got somebody from LG to come out and go, yep, it's the motherboard. So then he came back a few days later, replaced the motherboard and a sensor that lets you know when the coils are icing up, and he replaced that. And so for the last 8 or 10 days that I was there, we had a fully functional fridge and freezer. Yeah, Pat says it's been a long time since I bought a fridge. Yeah, the last fridge I bought was 2001, so it was 20 years ago. Anyway, great to see you guys. Thanks for showing up today. Good to be back. Love hanging out with you guys. I will see you Monday for a new show for the top 10. I will go back and look at this chat room tonight for possible names. Wow, there are a bunch of people showing up in here that I've never seen before. You guys must be lurkers that have come forth now with your names. So thank you guys. Thanks for all the good wishes while we were over there. And I will see you Monday for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Bye-bye.